Welcome to ISAP, the International Forum for Sustainable Asia and the Pacific 2022, organized by IGES, the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. We are pleased to start India-Japan Environmental Cooperation, Cooperation for Realization of Net Zero Society in India toward India-Japan Environmental Week. I'm Satoshi Kojima, Program Director of Kansai Research Center at IGES, and I'll moderate the session today. This session aims to present the activities and achievements of the Japan-India Technology Matchmaking Platform, so-called JITMAP, which is an initiative of IGES in collaboration with TT8, the Energy Research Institute of India, to promote environmental cooperation between Japan and India, and to invite stakeholders to share their views on future cooperation between Japan and India. Today, in addition, we introduce Japan-India Environmental Week to be held in New Delhi, India, in January 2023. Japan-India Environmental Week will be organized by the Ministry of the Environment of Japan and the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change of India, with the aim of strengthening environmental cooperation between Japan and India. This session will be 60 minutes long, and I hope you'll join and you enjoy and actively participate in this session. So now let's start the session. I'd like to invite speakers of first presentation on JITMAP, Mr. Toshinori Hamaguchi, Program Manager, Kansai Research Center of IGES, and Mr. Prasant Pal, Senior Fellow, Industrial Energy Efficiency of TT8. Mr. Hamaguchi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kojima-san. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, please.
Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I will briefly explain about the concept of Japan-India technology matchmaking platform, JITMAP. And after that, Mr. Prasant Pal, a Senior Fellow of Energy Program TT8, will explain about main outcomes and issues of JITMAP activities. In 2016, with the support of the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, IGES and TT8 launched the JITMAP. JITMAP is a multi-stakeholder platform to match Japanese manufacturers of environmental technologies, including low-carbon technologies, with Indian companies looking for such technologies. In India, IGES and TT8 have been so far promoting transfer of Japanese environmental technologies to Indian companies in about 10 years through 4 main activities, including seminar and workshop, feasibility study, training of trainers for local energy auditors and energy managers, and meetings with stakeholders in cooperation with Japanese and Indian implementing partners. This figure shows a total number of every activity for each technology that was so far implemented by JITMAP, as well as 4 steps that are taken for technology transfer. In step 1, target Indian companies are identified by TT8 in coordination with a Japanese technology company. In step 2, in cooperation with a Japanese technology company, TT8, local state government agencies, and industrial associations. Some of the 4 main activities are implemented for target Indian stakeholders to improve their understanding of the Japanese environmental technologies. In step 3, through application of the technology by a target Indian company, economic and environmental improvement effects are evaluated. In step 4, the economic and environmental improvement effects of the technology application are further disseminated to other Indian stakeholders. So far, locations of JITMAP activities have been mainly in the vicinity of Delhi, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, where industrialization is advanced, and in Andhra Pradesh, where seafood production is one of the main industries and the technology demand for the refrigeration system is high. Our Indian partners are mainly state-designated agencies and the Bureau of Energy Efficiency of Ministry of Power, such as JEDA and MEDA, other state and national government agencies, and local industrial associations. Finally, let me briefly introduce our JITMAP activities in this fiscal year. In May of this year, we organized a consultative meeting on Japanese low-carbon technologies for foundry and textile sectors in India, in cooperation with Japanese and Indian stakeholders. From this November to June 2023, we will implement situational analysis and needs assessment on the National Clean Air Program in India, in cooperation with MOEJ, Japan Embassy in India, and Japan Environmental Technology Association. In January 2023, we will organize a seminar on initiatives and issues on transfer of Japanese environmental technology in India through JITMAP activities in India Japan Environmental Week, which will be followed by another seminar on air pollution in India. This is all of my presentation about JITMAP, and for the second half of our presentation, let me hand over to Mr. Pal. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamaguchi-san. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. It has been actually a privilege from Terry to be associated with this activity, closely the JITMAP activities with IGS and other Japanese partners. And I will take you through some of the activities such as awareness programs and on-site feasibility studies, which Hamaguchi-san has already mentioned some examples from those. Next, please. Some of the case studies, I'll give 3 specific case studies. Of course, a large number of activities have been organized. And the first case study is actually about an awareness generation event on steam generation systems, steam management systems, which was organized jointly with TLV of Japan and the Indian partners. This was organized in 2020 in Gujarat, and the Indian partners were Gujarat Energy Development Agency, JEDA, which is the state government agency, and the National Productivity Council. This was more of a training of trainers program where almost more than 120 certified energy auditors and managers received training on energy management practices from the Japanese experts. And it has led to kind of capacity building, particularly on activities related to steam valves, steam straps, and so on, which was explained by the Japanese experts. The second activity, the case study, is about a practical implementation oriented activity, on-site feasibility study in a company in Maharashtra, which is manufacturing automobile parts. And this feasibility study was conducted in 2017, and a follow-up visit also was planned in 2020. So the major recommendations from the feasibility were both related to adoption of new technologies like energy efficient inverter type air compressors, as well as operating practice improvement in the company, like reducing the air leakages. Without any cost, a huge amount of saving can be achieved. So as a follow-up, when we visited the company subsequently, I mean, it was found to a pleasant surprise that a huge amount of energy saving, almost 1.8 million units of electricity was being saved, and which has led to a huge amount of monetary saving also for the company as well. Next, please. I would like to also take you to one more case study that is on another technology, which is on energy efficient transmission beds, which are used, as you know, almost in every drive system. These are used. And this activity was done jointly with Bando Chemicals of Japan. And the location was again in Gujarat in 2018. And the activity basically spread over awareness raising seminar on with the Ankleshwar Industries Association there. as well as feasibility studies, on-site feasibility studies in selected Indian companies. And the outcomes were awareness raising for more than 110 participants from industry and local stakeholders on this energy efficient belts. And immediately as a follow-up, 5 local companies decided to adopt that, the belt system, and which has the potential to save 5 to 15% of energy in terms of by replacing the belt and the pulley system. And as a follow-up, when we visited the cluster subsequently also in 2020, we found that more than 6 local companies and 5 large companies have adopted the energy efficient belt system. Next, please. Finally, concluding, what are the issues and what are the way forward for the platform, Japan-India Technology Matchmaking Platform? And obviously, there's a huge potential to strengthen bilateral cooperation between India and Japan, particularly on climate change and energy efficient technologies. And this essentially, I mean, the first issue or activity is awareness raising among the Indian stakeholders. How the awareness raising can be there for the Indian stakeholders, especially the MSMEs on Japanese environmental technologies. And this can obviously be through enhanced implementation, continuous implementation of the cooperation and expanding the cooperation along with MOEJ, who are the partners, Embassy of Japan in India, and the private sector companies in India. The other thing is synergizing the initiative, strengthening the initiative, JITMAP initiative, with synergizing with other initiatives, both in India and Japan. And here I would like to just mention in the way forward is some of the platforms like the JPRSI, Japan Platform for Redesign Sustainable Infrastructure, Blue Sky Initiative of Japan, and the other associations like JICA, Japan Environmental Technology Association, and Energy Conservation Center of Japan, EECJ, and even in India, there are many initiatives, I mean, where we can actually synergize and strengthen the cooperation through the activities. Next, please. And for example, in India, there is one activity which is ongoing on the National Clean Air Program in India, which is ongoing activity, and JITMAP can actually strengthen the activities by synergizing with such activities, ongoing activities. Now, the overall sustainability, another issue is the sustainability of JITMAP platform, and that the key activity would be to expand the JITMAP. As Hamaguchi-san has mentioned, we have concentrated only on a few clusters or few states in India. There's a good scope for expansion of that activity and even developing model clusters for technology transfer and cooperation, where a huge amount of number of companies can be changed, transformed by using the Japanese technologies. And by also even deepening the cooperation activities by taking activities such as demonstration projects, more training of trainers, capacity building kind of activities. The entire, I mean, that is the kind of way forward we envisage for JITMAP. I would like to end here and thank you very much. I think that's the last slide. Next, please. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Over to Kojima-san.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamaguchi and Mr. Pal, for introducing JITMAP activities. So now let's move on to the presentation on Japan-India Environmental Week. I'd like to invite Ms. Junko Nishikawa, Director for Sustainable Infrastructure, Office of Director for International Cooperation for Transition to Decarbonization and Sustainable Infrastructure, Ministry of the Environment, Japan. Nishikawa-san, the floor is yours. Nishikawa-san, maybe you're muted. Could you demute? Nishikawa-san, still I cannot hear you. Could you check your microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, now we can hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for notifying that. Okay, this is Junko Nishikawa, Director for Sustainable Infrastructure from Ministry of the Environment of Japan. So I'd like to thank for organizers for giving me opportunities to present at ISAP about our plan for India-Japan Environmental Week. So next one, please. So this is an overview of the Japan-India environmental cooperation so far. So Prime Minister Modi has visited Japan in 2018, and during that time, Ministry of the Environment of Japan and the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of India has signed a memorandum of cooperation to strengthen our bilateral cooperation in the field of the environment. So after that, in 2021, under the MOC, we had the first Japan-India environmental policy dialogue between the two ministers. And later on, Prime Minister Kishida visited India earlier this year. And on the Japan-India joint statement between the two heads of the states, the Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Modi committed to continue further discussions towards the establishment of the joint crediting mechanism, which will facilitate the transfer of the advanced decarbonizing technologies to India. So we are still ongoing the discussion, but hopefully in the near future, we could sign the MOC on the JCM, and then we can also expand our technology transfer on this platform as well. And during the visit of Mr. Kishida, we also signed another memorandum of cooperation in the decentralized domestic wastewater management. I'm sorry, there is a typo of the name of the ministry. We had a memorandum with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, not the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Sorry, there was a typo on that. So the latest topic, the latest focus which we are having between the two countries is deepening our cooperation further through organizing the Japan-India Environmental Week, which I will discuss further later. And also given the fact that Japan is the next presidency of the G7 meeting, and India is the next presidency of the G20 meeting next year. So we are also starting the discussion on how the two countries can collaborate in this domain, that we can have some potential common agenda in the both two summits. And another one is, as I said, advancing the discussion on JCM establishment is ongoing, and I hope that it could come through sooner. Okay, next, please. And this slide shows the result of the first Japan-India Environmental Week. Environmental policy dialogues. Both ministers have met online and discussed various topics, including climate change, marine litter, air pollution, and sustainable transportation and environmental technologies. And we agreed to promote further the cooperation in these domains. And we are hoping to have another policy dialogue soon so that we can continue to follow up the discussion which we had last year. Next one, please. Regarding the Environment Weeks, we started these initiatives in 2018, organizing the event with our close partner countries, including Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. In the next Environmental Week will be held with India. This is the main topics which I'm going to talk about. The Environmental Week is a series of events, public-private events comprising of bilateral policy dialogue, G2G dialogue, and public-private seminar, and private exhibition, and business matching. to provide opportunities to enhance comprehensive cooperation between two countries from upstream policy support to downstream project development. Next one, please. So the next Environmental Week will be held in Delhi next year. We set the dates of 12 to 13 of January next year. And we will have a hybrid system. So we have a physical meeting in Delhi, but the online connection will be secured for the participants abroad. And MOEJ and Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change will co-host the event together with the industrial associations, including TERI and IHS. And when you look at the tentative program, we will have several topics, including the JITMAP environmental technology transfer. And also we have other seminars like clean energy technology updates, decarbonizing technologies, marine plastics, clean air, and water environment. So broad range of environmental topics will be covered in the seminar, and any companies and solution providers in these domains will highlight their technologies and technology options. So it would give excellent opportunities for the private entities in both countries will meet, will know each other, and will discuss about potential idea of collaboration. Next one, please. So this is the details of the legislation. We will have a physical event on this date, on these 2 dates, but at the same time, we will have an online event which will be around 3 weeks starting from 12 January until the end of January. And we are now asking the registration for the exhibitors. And please see the deadline of the exhibition. So please make sure to prepare and give a registration until the deadline. The registration is free of charge. And interested exhibitor can also given opportunities to make pitch presentation in between the seminars. So they can have more opportunities to expose their options, their technology solutions to the government stakeholders as well as private potential partners in India. So general participants are also requested to register in advance, and here is the URL for the registration. And any question can be asked to the Secretariat, which is the OECC. Okay, so I'm so much welcome all the interested people to register or check the website first, and then hopefully register, and we'll see you in person in Delhi next year, January. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nishikawa-san, for introducing in Japan-India Environmental Week. And then, yeah, it's nice to have this online event as well, in addition to on-site events. So it might be a very good opportunity and to have a wide participation all over the world. So thank you very much for your presentation. So now let's move on to the panel discussion. So first, I'd like to introduce 5 panelists. So, Ms. Mihoko Nagai, First Secretary, Embassy of Japan in India, and Mr. A.V. Gugari, Director, Trinity Engineers, and Mr. Jun Watanabe, Senior Representative, JICA India Office of Japan, JICA, and Mr. Takeshi Kobayashi, Chairman, Overseas Committee of Japan Environmental Technology Association, JETA, and Mr. Girish Sethi, Senior Director, Energy Program, TERI. So thank you for joining this panel discussion session. So first, to open this session, I'd like to ask a question to each panelist. Then, based on the answers, and let's, if we have more time, we can continue to have a panel discussion. So first, Nagai-san. So how do you think about the role of embassies in environmental cooperation and the potential for environmental cooperation with India?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kojima. Quindi, embassy. I have no presentation material, and I just talk for a few minutes. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the ministry in charge of negotiations and cooperation with foreign governments or international agencies. So naturally, the embassy is the entity to take charge of this cooperation. However, I think it is difficult for this embassy to take on a main role in the environmental cooperation because of its scarcity in resources in terms of the number of personnel or the overall knowledge. Also, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the ministry in charge of official development assistance or ODA, but in this field, JICA, or Japan International Cooperation Agency, is the first and foremost entity in carrying out, including in the environmental field. So what is the role of the embassy in the field of environmental cooperation? The answer, I think, is that the greatest strength of an embassy is its capability or potential to engage with a wide variety of entities as an on-site organization for diplomacy and as a representative of the Japanese government in each country. For example, in my case, although it has only been a couple of months since I arrived in India to take on the present position, been involved with many organizations, including the Ministry of the Environment of the Government of India, State Government Environment Official, Japanese Local Government Environment Departments, JICA India Office, Japanese companies with strengths in environment-related technologies, Indian companies interested in Japanese technologies, or Japanese associations of commerce and industries, environmental think tanks, including ISAP, which is the host of today's seminar, and Japanese and Indian researchers in the environmental field, or student clubs, and even people in charge of the environment at the United Nations Environment Program or the United Nations Development Program. And I understand that I should utilize this advantage of meeting with so many people from so many organizations to the maximum extent to make a progress in the environmental cooperation in India. I think it can be said that Japan-India bilateral environment cooperation has still not very progressed. The reason for this is that there is a scarcity in the needs for Japan-India environmental cooperation in the Indian side, or there is more prioritized areas such as the projects for basic infrastructures, so I have heard. But I think there is a factor of perhaps the lack of communication between each side. Living in India, I feel that there is a huge potential or need for the environment cooperation from Japan in several areas, notably air and water pollution and waste management. Needless to say, if Japan imports goods produced in India and consumes these goods, the environmental impacts in Japan will decrease, and in return, that for India will increase. Just as the same with the climate change issue, cooperation in the environmental field is necessary based on the idea that the environmental issues transcend national boundaries. I have an experience of offending an Indian student when I failed to mention these things. So I believe conveying this idea that the environmental cooperation is necessary to reduce overall loss in the environment from the global perspective, as well as offering the concrete measures in overcoming environmental problems and presenting what Japan can offer, then the India side will have more ease in specifying its needs for environmental cooperation. We should also try to publicize to the Indian side the environmental cooperation projects between Japan and India that are already being conducted by some organizations such as ISAP or JICA. I believe publicizing already existing cooperation will also help to hear the needs for future area of cooperation from the Indian side. Lastly, from the embassy's perspective, we'd like to hear from as many different organizations or people as possible about the ideas and knowledge regarding the Japan-India environmental cooperation. We'd be pleased to discuss any good ideas the participants of this seminar may have as well. Thank you. That's all from me.
Nagai-san, thank you very much. Yeah, very comprehensive and then very good answer. And then so as you mentioned, I hope so today's session can provide some good idea to you, to embassy as well. Thank you very much, Nagai-san. Then now I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Gugari. So Mr. Gugari, so your company has participated in JITMAP activity to promote Japanese low carbon technologies in India and has achieved energy efficiency already.
Yes.
So firstly, could you briefly explain how your company achieved energy efficiency through JITMAP activities? And secondly, so based on that experience, what kind of activities do you think JITMAP needs or JITMAP more desirable to disseminate Japanese environmental technologies to Indian companies, especially to small and medium-sized enterprises, many of which are lagging behind in energy efficiency, achieving decarbonization in India? So Mr. Gugari, the floor is yours.
Dear friends, Trinity engineers participated in JITMAP activities for low carbon technology, that is compressed air system. Japanese expert visit was arranged in 2017 and 18 for assessment and the improvement scope. The compressed air system study was done with IGES support, energy measurements, leakage test, pipeline, and hammer used. Based on the assessment and suggestion by the Japanese expert, Mr. Shiato Sen, pipeline modifications were done and hammer leakage were plugged. This resulted in an energy saving of almost 20%. Further, in addition to this, we are replacing the old air pipelines, which will definitely further improve the savings. Capital investment project for the new VFD compressors were not done in view of COVID and the market situation. Recently, 3 new air-cooled compressors with the low energy consumptions were purchased and old were discarded. Old systems, all the cooling water pumps, cooling towers are not required now. This further reduces the energy savings and less maintenance and reduction of the water use in the company. A new small compressor for the machine shop for weekly off days, this resulted in the energy saving of almost 30%. The company is further planning for its own solar power for which finances at the lower interest is desirable, which will reduce consumption power used from the locals' own power companies. Dissemination for low carbon technology like gas-fired furnaces for forging and heat treatment, furnace design, burner systems to enable reduce the energy consumption. It would be very appreciated for meeting and the visits can be arranged with the Japanese counterparts to study their billet systems for unallied applications either in India or Japan. Further, technologies for MSAB where support is desirable are energy efficient furnace system, oil and gas burners, further design for the billet heating and heat treatment. We are also planning for induction heaters for the billet heating to reduce oil and gas fire burners, which will result in a reduction of the carbon emission to the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gugari. It's very how say you provided very excellent concrete cases of this technology transfer success case, and then it's quite impressive that 30% energy efficiency improvement is achieved through this activity. even though there are some like bad luck due to like COVID-19 influence, like market situation, etc. But still, it's very impressive. So thank you very much to provide a very interesting example. Okay, so now I'd like to ask a question to Watanabe-san. So Watanabe-san, so JICA has been providing its assistance in the forestry and the power sectors of India for many years to help India's efforts towards net zero society. In recent years, JICA has also contributed to the reduction of GHG emissions in India by providing the assistance to local small and medium enterprises through ODA loans and private sector investment finance. So could you give us an overview of this comprehensive development assistance and the lessons you have learned from this experience?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much, Kojima-san, for your introduction and raising a valuable question to me. I'm Watanabe, Senior Representative of JICA India office. It is a privilege for me for attending this session. As you know, JICA is a governmental agency which provides financial support and technical cooperation, mainly to the government of India. Today, by illustrating some JICA projects in this field, I'd like to respond to your question. The next slide, please. JICA has been supporting India in various sectors towards its net zero society. For example, metro sector and energy sector. JICA projects have covered approximately 680 kilometers of metro rail network across India in such cities as Delhi, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. Metro cannot perfectly solve the CO2 emission issue in transportation sector, but I'm sure those projects contribute to suppressing the increase of CO2. JICA also supports projects in energy sector, for example, through governmental banks, which provided a loan for installment of energy-saving equipment or renewable energy facilities. The next slide, please. The previous slide showed rather conventional JICA's cooperation to the Indian government, but from now on, I'd like to introduce JICA's new initiatives. The first one is a direct private debt finance to a private financial institution. This project will improve financial access in such fields as renewable energy, energy saving, and electric vehicle through a long-term financing to Tata Cleantech. Tata Cleantech is jointly established by Tata Group and IFC, and it is known as the first private green bank focusing on climate change control loans in India. Unfortunately, as of now, Tata Cleantech has not identified any borrowers under the JICA loan, but we intend to contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gases while making use of the know-how of such a private financial institution. The next slide, please. The next one is a fund investment to support SMEs' efforts of CO2 mitigation. NIB Fund is an impact investment fund pursuing social and environmental impacts together with economic returns from its investments. Through this fund, JICA intends to support Indian SMEs engaged in solving social and environmental issues. So far, the fund has invested 4 SME companies, including 2 companies who produces a biogas plant and a green hydrogen plant. The next slide, please. Considering our past experiences and the current Indian context, how to involve private companies and to utilize their knowledge and vitality will be the key to cope with net zero society in India. For example, supporting green industry and renewable energy through our private window, PSIF, will be promising areas for JICA's future cooperation. On the other hand, JICA as a governmental agency will continue G2G support in various sectors. A project-type cooperation to the government will be still a valid option, for example, to construct a pumped storage for stabilizing grid fluctuation brought by introduction of renewable energy. To cope with the important agenda of India, how to transit from the current energy mix of centering coal thermal powers might be suitable for technical cooperation. By using all available schemes such as policy lending, TTAP loan, project loan, technical cooperation, as well as PSIF, JICA will continue to support the Indian efforts for its net zero society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Watanabe-san. So it's very nice to know that JICA has already implemented such a wide variety of assistant project covering not only very advanced technology like green hydrogen, but also support for SMEs. So it's really encouraging. Thank you very much. So now I'd like to ask question to Kobayashi-san. So Kobayashi-san, so JETA is working to solve air pollution problems through pilot project and a series of webinars on air pollution control in India, Indian manufacturing sector, together with IGES. So based on these experiences, so how do you think Japan and India should cooperate to solve air pollution problems in future? The floor is yours, Kobayashi-san.
Thank you very much for inviting for this meeting. So I'm chairman overseas committee. Chairman is JETA. My name is Takeshi Kobayashi. So just to simply introduce, JETA is a Japan Environmental Technology Association, is working for monitoring technology in Japanese regulation and also for ambient monitoring and for water monitoring. So this is working for monitoring technology in Japan. And also not only in Japan, but also we are supporting for China market because of the from 2011 in China also has some of the problem in the air ambient monitoring technology. So we are cooperating with the Chinese market from our experience. So, and also IGES, we like to get the supporting from the IGES. Then we have a many seminar with China for making the new regulation. For example, in China making the VOC regulation, and also they are planning to make a low concentration emission from the power plant. In those timing, we are supporting to experience. We are supporting some of the experience to talking to the Chinese government because of the they are starting the many low concentrations and regulation, and also for those monitoring technology is important. For example, if you have some diet, you need to measure your weight. It is also important issue, and also monitoring is also important to reduce environmental technology. So in the past 20 years ago, in China is using the very low price and not high quality analyzer. Then this is no good for environmental and also cannot collect the environmental tax. Now they are focusing the high accuracy analyzer, and also environment is improving by the highest quality analyzer. So this is one of the example from our experience in Japan and China. And also I'd like to say that India is not the same, maybe it's not same way. We like to following the Indian way also. But anyway, the monitoring technology also important. We like to make some of that what kind of support necessary for Indian market, and also what kind of the support we can do. So we need to understand the Indian requirement, and also we like to supporting to our experience to Indian market. And also I think coal power plant is also more important because of the emission of the CO2 is so important. But now in Japan, the CO2 capturing technology is increasing. It is also one of our experience. We can do one of the power plant already to capturing the CO2. It is also contribution in the CO2 reduction. So I think that's kind of the technology also maybe we can support for Indian market. Anyway, we like to have a continuous discussion with Terry and IJS and also those customers. Thank you very much for today's topics.
Kobayashi-san, thank you very much. So it's interesting to, so you presented like success case of technology transfer between Japan and China, and then so the way forward to promote such a similar cooperation between Japan and India. So thank you very much, Kobayashi-san. So now I'd like to invite Mr. Sethi. So I'd like to ask one question. So Mr. Sethi, so Terry has been working with IJS for more than 10 years to promote the transfer of Japanese low carbon technologies to the Indian manufacturing industry. So what issues and what barriers need to be addressed if JITMAP would like to effectively promote the diffusion of Japanese environmental technology to Indian companies and further contribute to environmental cooperation between Japan and India in the future? So, Mr. Sethi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Kojima-san. I hope I am audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So it's really a privilege to be a part of this ISAP session specifically organized by the Kansai Research Center. I think because I have been associated with KRC for many, many years, as you mentioned, I think in many of the initiatives. So thanks once again for the invitation. Before I specifically respond to your this question on JITMAP, I just wanted to go back, maybe take 1 or 2 minutes to just go back to the overall theme of under which this whole session is being organized, which is on the Net Zero Society and the India-Japan Environmental Week, which was introduced by the earlier speakers. So I just wanted to leave the background that both India and Japan actually, if one looks at it over the last 1.5 years or so, have announced their net zero plans, with the Prime Minister of India announcing in Glasgow the 2070 target. And if one really looks at Japan as a society in terms of the cooperation, I think Japan has been the leader in clean technology space for many, many years. I think the global leader for so many years, what I have personally learned. Going back to the 1970s, when Japan was the first country to perhaps enact the energy conservation law in 1979, following the two oil crises in 1973 and 78. And both from the policy perspective as well as from the technology perspective, I think Japan is a leader, and there are so many areas where we can actually cooperate between Japan and India. And when it comes to specifically the question which you are focusing on in terms of the JITMAP, what we have done, my colleagues earlier had mentioned, and what we can move forward in that. I think this backdrop which I mentioned in terms of the availability of technologies and experiences of the Japanese policymakers and the companies in propagating the whole concept of clean technology, I think that's something where we can really cooperate quite a lot in the coming months and years in terms of the outcomes. Now, if one looks at India, the energy consumption pattern in India, more than 50% of the energy consumption in India, the fossil-based energy consumption in India, is actually coming from the industry sector. And within the industry sector, the role of the small and medium enterprises is extremely important. Almost, I would say almost 40% at least, or 40 to 45% of the total fossil fuel energy within the industry sector is actually consumed by the small and medium enterprises. And it's in this segment that there are huge opportunities for energy saving that we can see. I think one of the earlier speakers, Mr. Gogari, mentioned about the savings which he achieved through the benefit, through the JITMAP activities, through the compressed air systems. So like these, there are millions of small and medium enterprises spread across the country who can benefit from such programs. So in terms of the outcomes, I think moving forward, I would say that perhaps JITMAP should continue to focus on this segment, on the industry segment, and within the industry continue the deeper engagement with the small and medium enterprises. And as was mentioned, I think by colleague Prashanto earlier, I think perhaps it is now time for us. Now we are, luckily the COVID is behind us, and prior to the COVID, we used to have many of these physical events in India, as well as field visits by the Japanese experts. So I think perhaps it is time for us to revive and expand this cooperation in terms of direct interaction with the industries, expand this coverage in terms of the feasibility studies, in terms of demonstration projects, if possible, with the resources available from various agencies. And also, if one can do some kind of deep dive interventions in a few model clusters, I think it's extremely important to look at these aspects in the coming months and years to expand the cooperation. The examples, I think even Mr. Gugari had mentioned about, like in case of the forging industry, the oil and gas burners, the efficient furnace designs, many areas where lots of opportunities exist for us to move beyond the existing set of activities which we are doing under the steam management systems and compressed air systems. Of course, these are the two major areas, the steam systems, including the boilers, the steam trap, the steam management systems, and the compressed air systems. We should continue to deepen and expand the focus in these areas, and then expand the coverage to other regions and states within India to have a more effective implementation plan. And another area I just thought I'll quickly mention, I think, which was very briefly mentioned also by, I think the earlier speaker, Mr. Watanabe, I think under the JICA initiative. So I think the role of hydrogen in moving forward, in moving towards a net zero society. So I think it's now also important to recognize that this is, if we have to actually move towards a net zero society, hydrogen is going to play an extremely important role, both in all sectors of the economy, but I would say primarily in the industrial sector, both in India and Japan. So if there are opportunities to expand and look at some feasibility studies or awareness kind of things where Japan is actually moving in the green hydrogen space, I'm sure JITMAP and Terry from this side would be happy to take it forward. So, of course, the areas related to the renewable energy, whether it is the solar, wind, or biomass-based applications, I think as a country, India has really taken major initiatives and we are moving forward. But I think the new areas, the new actions are needed in these kind of new innovative fields. So with these words, I'd like to stop here, and I congratulate and thank IGIS and the Japanese stakeholders for having India as a country for the India-Japan Environmental Week in January. So best wishes from Terry's side, and we'll be happy to support in that initiative as well. Back to you, Kojima-san.
Yeah, thank you very much, Techi-san. Yeah, and then, yeah, so it's really, yeah, that's important. Like, yeah, it's quite impressive that, like, usually, of course, a number of SMEs, like small, medium-sized enterprises, large, but in terms of like energy consumption, like a mass level, it's also very, how to say, like large portion of like energy consumption is shared by SMEs. So it's impressive. So it's really, really important to like implement a technology transfer, targeting these SME sectors. And then also you mentioned about the importance of like as kind of also cooperation in new technology, including like hydrogen, green hydrogen. It's yeah, already like Watanabe-san mentioned, JICA covers like hydrogen, the various type of renewable energy as well. But I think this is one very like promising area of the cooperation between Japan and India to promote net zero society in both countries. So thank you very much. Okay, so now, yeah, actually, if time is allowed, I'd like to ask like a last question to panelists, but I'm afraid that time is already enough. So I'd like to conclude today's session. So yeah, so thank you very much for all valuable inputs. It's really insightful. And then I hope with audience and also like between panelists and speakers of this session, so this session contribute to provide some good ideas to further strengthen environmental cooperation between Japan and India. And then also like anyway, coming January, this the big event, Japan-India Environmental Week will be held in New Delhi. And then so let's continue this kind of very constructive discussion, and then also like exchange like opinions or ideas to further promote the environmental cooperation, and then also the cooperation various fields, not only environment, but also in many fields to strengthen the relationship between two countries, Japan and India. So yeah, so thank you very much for all the participants. So I'd like to thank all of you joining this session, including audience. So I hope that discussion was both fruitful and insightful. And then, so ISAP 2022 is ongoing through the 5th of December. So I hope to see you in other sessions, or even at the next ISAP. We will plan to organize ISAP in next year as well. So we'd like to see either other session this year's ISAP or maybe next year's ISAP. So thank you very much for your participation. So before we completely close this session, I'd like to ask a favor of all of you in the audience. So when this session concludes, you will be presented with a survey in Zoom. So your feedback is very important for us to improve future sessions. So please take a moment to fill it out. So thank you very much again for your cooperation. So let's close this session. So thank you very much. So big hand clap to all the speakers and panelists. So thank you very much. So let's close this session.